Mommy, why doesn't Grandma want us near the stage? My daughter's innocent question cut through the golden ballroom like a shard of glass, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. 300 guests swirled around us in their designer gowns and tailored suits, champagne flutes catching the light from the crystal chandeliers, but all I could see was my 7-year-old Emma's confused face looking up at me, her small hand trembling in mine. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in my head, what I would say when someone finally asked the question out loud. But standing there in my safe, invisible navy dress, watching my brother Ethan laugh with his fiancée Olivia on the gilded stage, I realized no amount of preparation could soften the truth. "Because," I whispered, my voice barely audible over the orchestra, "sometimes people are afraid of things they don't understand." Emma frowned, her jasmine-scented hair ribbon, the one luxury I'd allowed us today, catching the light. "But we're family." Family. The word tasted bitter on my tongue as I watched my mother, Margaret Collins, lean close to Olivia, both of them stealing glances our way. Their expressions were identical, careful, calculated, cold. 26 years I'd carried this weight. 26 years of being the family's walking curse, the bad luck charm they invited out of obligation but kept at arm's length. And now, watching my daughter's innocence crack under the same scrutiny, something inside me finally snapped. "Yes, baby," I said, squeezing her hand. "We are family." But as Olivia's laugh rang out across the ballroom, sharp and crystalline as the champagne she sipped, I knew that blood had never been enough. Not in the Collins family. Not when reputation mattered more than truth, and appearances more than love. I should have known this engagement party would be different. I should have recognized the signs when the invitation arrived on cream cardstock so thick it could have been armor, when Mother called to remind me about appropriate attire, when Ethan's texts grew shorter and less frequent as the date approached. But I came anyway. Because despite everything, I still believed in the possibility of change. I was about to learn how wrong I was. My name is Maya Collins. For 26 years, I was seen by my entire family as a curse, the one who caused my father's death. But on that lavish engagement night, in front of hundreds of guests, my 7-year-old daughter grabbed the microphone and shouted, "My mommy is not a curse. Grandma hates her only because she needs someone to blame for Grandpa's death." And in that very moment, every dark secret was exposed. Before I share my full story, tell me where you're watching from in the comments. Hit like and subscribe if you've ever overcome pain caused by your own family. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The Whitmore Hotel's ballroom was everything the Collins family stood for: opulent, intimidating, and utterly devoid of warmth. I stood at the edge of it all, feeling the aggressive air conditioning despite the crowd of bodies. Every sound, laughter, clinking glasses, camera shutters, reaching me as if from underwater. "Mommy, look at the heart!" Emma tugged at my dress, pointing at the enormous floral arrangement behind the stage. "It's bigger than our whole apartment." I smoothed down a wrinkle in my dress, the fabric suddenly feeling cheaper under my fingers. This navy number had cost me 2 weeks of overtime at the dental office where I worked as a hygienist, but surrounded by the Grant family's guests, I might as well have worn a garbage bag. On stage, Ethan glowed in his cream tuxedo, every inch the successful investment banker our mother had groomed him to be. Beside him, Olivia Grant looked like royalty in her rose gold gown, her gaze sweeping the room like a queen taking attendance. When her eyes found mine, something tightened at their corners, not quite a sneer, but close. She leaned toward my mother, whispering something that made Margaret's spine straighten. I watched my mother navigate through the crowd with practiced elegance, her silver hair gleaming under the lights, her expression fixed in that public smile I knew too well, the one that never reached her eyes when she looked at me. "Maya," she said when she reached us, her voice pitched low and sweet enough to rot teeth. "You look comfortable." "Hello, Mother." She didn't acknowledge Emma, who was hiding slightly behind my leg. Margaret's gaze fixed on mine with laser precision. "I need you to stay back here, away from the stage area." "I'm sorry?" "Olivia is particular about the energy around her today. She's concerned about—" Margaret paused. choosing her words like selecting weapons, maintaining positive vibrations for the ceremony. The words hit me like ice water. Positive vibrations? You understand. It wasn't a question. We wouldn't want any unfortunate incidents. I searched her face for something, anything that might suggest she was joking. But Margaret Collins didn't joke about reputation. You're asking me to hide because Olivia thinks I'm bad luck? I'm asking you to be considerate. Her smile never wavered, but her eyes were steel. For Ethan's sake. I looked across the room at my brother, hoping he'd notice, hoping he'd intervene. Our eyes met for a fraction of a second, long enough for me to see the recognition, the discomfort, the shame, before he turned away, laughing at something Olivia's father said. My throat constricted. Of course, for Ethan's sake. Margaret patted my arm, the gesture so fleeting I might have imagined it. I knew you'd understand. You always were the practical one. She glided away, leaving me standing there with my daughter, who was trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Mommy, why can't we go up there? Everyone else gets to. I knelt down, meeting her confused eyes, struggling to find words that wouldn't poison her against her own family. Not yet. She was still too young to carry that burden. Sometimes, sweetheart, people have ideas about us that aren't true. But that doesn't make us less valuable. It makes them less wise. Like when Susie at school said I was weird for not having a daddy? My heart cracked. Exactly like that. But you told me to stand up to Susie. I did. So why aren't you standing up to Grandma? The question hung between us, and I had no good answer. Because the truth was, I'd been backing down for so long, I'd forgotten what standing up even looked like. Come on, I said, taking her hand. Let's get you some of those fancy cookies. As I led Emma toward the dessert table, I caught a glimpse of us in one of the ballroom's gilded mirrors. A tired-looking woman in a plain dress and a bright-eyed little girl who deserved so much more than shadows and whispers. The old scar on my heart, the one that formed the night my father died and my mother decided I was to blame, began to throb. But this time, watching Emma's small shoulders slump as she realized we were being excluded, something else stirred beneath the pain. Anger. For the first time in 26 years, pure, crystalline anger. 26 years ago, I was 8 when the rain came down like judgment that night, when my mother's scream tore through our perfect suburban home and shattered everything I thought I knew about safety. My father, Robert Collins, had been driving home from a meeting he'd taken only because I'd begged him to come to my school play the next day instead of traveling for work. If only you hadn't been so selfish, our neighbor Mrs. Chen had whispered at the funeral, not quite quietly enough. The poor man, changing his whole schedule. My mother never corrected her, never said it wasn't my fault. She just held Ethan, then 3, closer and looked through me like I was made of glass. Present day. The memory surfaced unbidden as I watched Emma nibble on a macaron, her eyes still tracking the festivities we weren't welcome to join. After Dad died, Mother had frozen me out with surgical precision. Every achievement of mine was met with skepticism. Don't get too confident, Maya. Pride comes before a fall. Every setback was expected. Well, what did you think would happen? Ethan, meanwhile, became her golden child, her second chance. He could do no wrong while I could do no right. And I accepted it, internalized it, believed it. That's why I married Daniel Pierce at 22, not for love, but for escape. He was handsome, charming, and promised me a fresh start. For a while, I believed him. Then came the miscarriages, 3 of them, each one chipping away at Daniel's patience, at his performance of being a husband. Maybe your mother was right, he'd said after the 3rd one, packing his suitcase with the mechanical efficiency of someone who'd already left mentally. Maybe you really are cursed. He disappeared with nothing but a text. I can't do this anymore. When I discovered I was pregnant again 6 months later, Daniel long gone, I didn't tell anyone for 5 months. I was terrified that speaking it aloud would kill this baby too, but Emma arrived screaming and perfect, defying every dire prediction. Mother held her for exactly 5 seconds at the hospital before handing her back. Let's hope she doesn't inherit your luck. Back to the present. Mommy, you're squishing my hand. I loosened my grip on Emma's fingers, realizing I'd been clutching her like an anchor. Sorry, baby. The party swirled on around us, a carousel of air kisses and calculated conversations. Victoria Grant, Olivia's mother, held court near the champagne fountain, her laugh like silver bells hiding razor blades. Ethan was surrounded by his banking colleagues, their voices full of the casual confidence that came from never having to question their place in the world. And there was Olivia, the future Mrs. Collins, gliding through it all like she was born to it. Which, of course, she was. The Grants owned half of Manhattan's commercial real estate. The marriage would merge two empires, create a dynasty. I was just the embarrassing sister who'd gotten pregnant out of wedlock, who worked with her hands, who lived in a 2-bedroom rental in Queens. The bad luck charm they couldn't quite shake. Maya? Maya Collins? I turned to find Lena Morales, a friend from high school who'd somehow ended up as the Whitmore's event coordinator. Her eyes widened with genuine pleasure before something else flickered across her face. Discomfort, maybe pity. Lena, hi, beautiful party. Thanks, I didn't know you were Ethan's sister. Different last names on the guest list and... She trailed off, clearly having heard the family narrative. Your daughter is beautiful. Thank you. I watched Emma wave shyly at Lena. You did an amazing job with all this. Lena glanced around, then leaned closer. Can I tell you something, professional to professional? I nodded. I've coordinated a lot of these engagement parties. The real ones, the ones that last, there's warmth, even in all this. She gestured at the opulence. There's usually genuine affection. But this? She shook her head slightly. This feels like a business merger. Before I could respond, the master of ceremonies tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to begin the ring ceremony. Could we have the Collins and Grant families please join the happy couple on stage? The crowd began moving, phones rising like salutes. My mother ascended the stage stairs with practiced grace. Ethan's best friends followed. Victoria Grant and her husband claimed their positions. Extended family members filed up, creating a tableau of success and belonging. Emma tugged my dress. That's us, Mommy. We're Collins' family. But I stood frozen, watching Olivia catch my eye and smile. A victor's smile, sharp and satisfied. My mother stood beside her, not even glancing in our direction. I pressed my fingernails into my palms, leaving half-moon imprints in the skin. The countdown began. 3, 2, 1. The childhood promise I'd made to myself, to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to earn back my mother's love through silence, suddenly felt like a noose around my neck. Family to the stage, please. The MC's voice boomed through the speakers again, more insistent this time. The Collins clan was already assembled, cousins I barely knew, aunts who whispered about me at Christmas, uncles who forgot my name. They stood in their designer clothes like a magazine spread, waiting for the photographer to capture their perfect tableau. My feet moved of their own accord, muscle memory from years of family photos where I was always placed at the edge, easily cropped out. Emma walked beside me, her little hand in mine, trust radiating from her small body. We'd made it 3 steps when Olivia's voice cut through the ambient noise. Oh, Margaret, I think we have everyone we need. My mother turned, saw us approaching, and her face did something I'd never seen before. It wavered between her public mask and something almost like panic. She descended the stage with quick, precise steps, intercepting us before we could get any closer. Maya, her voice was steel wrapped in silk. I thought we discussed this. You discussed, I listened. There's a difference. Don't make a scene. I'm trying to join a family photo, Mother. How is that making a scene? Margaret's jaw tightened. You know what you are to this family. The words hung between us like a blade. Around us, guests pretended not to notice the drama unfolding, but I could feel their attention like heat on my skin. What am I, Mother? Say it out loud for once. I tell everyone what you've been telling me for 26 years. You're a reminder, she hissed, of everything that can go wrong. Robert died because a drunk driver hit him, not because I asked him to come to my school play. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. My voice was steady, though my hands shook. You needed someone to blame, and I was easier than accepting that sometimes terrible things just happen. Emma pulled at my dress. "Mommy, people are staring." She was right. Noah Reyes, a local reporter covering the society pages, had his camera trained on us, though he was pretending to photograph the ice sculpture. Several phones were discreetly pointed our way. "Please," Margaret said, and for a moment her voice almost sounded human. "Just this once, for Ethan." I looked at my brother on stage, watched him studiously avoid my gaze while Olivia whispered something in his ear that made him laugh, hollow and performative. I thought about all the nights I'd stayed up helping him with homework while Mother was at her charity galas. The times I'd made him dinner when the nannies quit. The way I'd held him when he cried after his first heartbreak, promising him he was worthy of love. "You're right," I said quietly. "I'll do it for Ethan. I always have." I stepped back, pulling Emma with me. My mother's shoulders relaxed, victory written in every line of her posture as she returned to the stage. 3, 2, 1, smile. The camera flashed, capturing the Collins Grant Union in all its curated glory, without us. Emma's face was scrunched in concentration, that look she got when she was trying to puzzle something out. "Mommy, why did everyone else get called up except us?" "I don't know, baby. Is it because we're poor?" "We're not poor, we're just not rich." "Is it because Daddy left?" Each question was a needle to my heart. "No, sweetheart." "Then why?" Her voice rose slightly, frustration bleeding through. "Why don't they want us?" I didn't have an answer that wouldn't break her heart or poison her against her family, so I just held her closer, feeling the weight of every slight, every exclusion, every moment of being made to feel less than. The MC announced the beginning of speeches. Olivia's maid of honor took the microphone, gushing about true love and perfect matches. The words felt like mockery. That's when I noticed Uncle David, my father's younger brother, standing near the bar. He was watching me with something like sorrow in his eyes. He'd been the only family member who'd ever questioned the narrative, who'd occasionally slipped me money when things got tight, who'd attended Emma's kindergarten graduation when no one else bothered. He raised his glass slightly in my direction, a silent acknowledgement, a witness to my humiliation. The room spun on, champagne and congratulations flowing freely. But in our dark corner, something was building in my chest. Not just anger now, resolution. It happened in slow motion, the way disasters always do. Emma slipped away from my side while I was lost in thought, her blue dress, the one I'd saved for 3 months to buy, swishing as she wove between the round tables. By the time I noticed, she was already halfway to the stage. "Emma, wait!" But my voice was swallowed by the ambient noise of 300 people pretending to listen to another speech about destiny and soulmates. I started after her, but my heels caught on someone's abandoned wrap, and I stumbled, catching myself on a chair. Emma reached the stage's edge just as the maid of honor finished her toast. The auxiliary microphone, set up for the flower girl who'd chickened out, sat on a stand at child height, forgotten by the crew. My daughter's small hand wrapped around it. "Excuse me," her clear voice rang out through the speakers. "Can I say something about the bride?" The ballroom froze. 300 heads turned in unison. Champagne glasses stopped midway to lips. The photographer's flash hung suspended like lightning. Olivia's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: confusion, annoyance, then something like fear as she recognized Emma. "Sweetie," the MC started, moving toward her, but Uncle David stepped forward, placing a protective hand on Emma's shoulder. "Let the child speak," he said, his voice carrying the authority of old money and older principles. Emma looked directly at Olivia, then at my mother, and finally found me in the crowd. I should have run to her, should have stopped this, but I was frozen by something in her eyes, the same resolution I'd just found in myself. "My mommy isn't bad luck," Emma said, each word crystal clear. "She's the kindest person in the whole world. She never yells, even when I spill juice on her work clothes. She holds me when I have nightmares about monsters." The room was so quiet I could hear the ice sculpture melting. "But you," Emma turned to Olivia, "you told Aunt Lexi in the bathroom that you don't really love Uncle Ethan. You said he's just a good match and that marrying him will make your daddy's company bigger." Gasps rippled through the crowd like dominoes falling. Olivia's carefully constructed face cracked, her mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. She doesn't understand. Children make things up. But Emma wasn't finished. You also said my mommy is trash and you're glad she knows her place. But my mommy isn't trash. She works hard every day to help people smile. She saves money in a jar so I can take ballet. She cries sometimes when she thinks I'm sleeping, but she always smiles in the morning. Tears were running down my face now, hot and unstoppable. I pushed through the crowd, not caring who I bumped into, needing to get to my daughter. And you know what? Emma's voice grew stronger. My mommy never says mean things about anyone. Not even you. Not even Grandma, who pretends we don't exist. That's not bad luck, that's good heart. Ethan stepped forward, his face pale. Olivia, is this true? Did you say those things? Ethan, darling, you can't believe a child. Did you say you don't love me? His voice cracked on the last word, 29 years old, and sounding suddenly like the lost boy I used to comfort. The silence stretched taut as a wire. Olivia looked to her mother for help, but Victoria Grant's face had turned to stone, calculating the social damage in real time. Love, Olivia said carefully, is a very complicated word. No, Ethan said quietly. It's not. I finally reached the stage, but before I could grab Emma, she turned to Margaret. Grandma, why do you hate us? Is it because Mommy doesn't have a husband? Because I don't have a daddy? Or is it because you need someone to blame for Grandpa dying? The last question hit like a bomb. Margaret went white, her hand flying to her throat where her pearls sat like a collar. How dare! Who told you? Nobody told me, Emma said simply. But I listen. I hear you tell people Mommy brought bad luck to the family. I hear you whisper about the accident. I'm 7, not stupid. Uncle David cleared his throat. Out of the mouths of babes, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Perhaps it's time we stopped letting children carry the weight of adult fears. A smattering of uncertain applause broke out, quickly suppressed. Noah Reyes had his camera up now, openly recording. Harper Lou, the family lawyer, was whispering urgently to Margaret. I reached for Emma, pulling her against me. Baby, you were so brave, but we should go. No. The word came from Ethan. He stood center stage, the cream tuxedo that had made him look golden now making him appear ghostly under the lights. No, he repeated. We're not running anymore. None of us. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time in years. Maya, I'm sorry, I'm so fucking sorry. Margaret gasped at the profanity. Ethan! But he was already pulling off his engagement ring, the metal catching the light as he set it carefully on the podium. The wedding's off. Olivia's recovery was swift and surgical. She transformed her face into something approaching wounded dignity, addressing the crowd with a voice dripping honey and arsenic. This is clearly a misunderstanding, she said, each word carefully placed. Children do have such vivid imaginations. Perhaps she overheard something out of context. Stop! Ethan's voice cut through her performance. Just stop! Victoria Grant rose from her seat, her presence commanding immediate attention. Perhaps we should discuss this privately. No! Ethan turned to face the crowd, his jaw set. We've had enough private discussions, enough hidden truths, enough lies dressed up as propriety. He walked to where Emma and I stood, kneeling to her level. Thank you, he said simply, for being braver than all the adults in this room. Emma threw her small arms around his neck. I missed you, Uncle Ethan. I missed you too, little star. I'm sorry I let them keep us apart. Margaret descended from the stage, her composure fracturing. Ethan, you're making a mistake. The merger, the families, everything we've worked for. Everything you worked for, he corrected, standing. Using me as your pawn, just like you used Maya as your scapegoat. The crowd was entranced now, phones forgotten, watching real drama unfold instead of the choreographed performance they'd expected. Lena appeared at my elbow, pressing something into my hand, a tissue. I knew something was off, she whispered. Earlier in the prep room, I heard Olivia on the phone with someone. She said the wedding was just a business transaction, that love was for people who couldn't afford better options. You heard that? I whispered back. She nodded. I wasn't the only one. The makeup artist, the photographer's assistant, we all heard it. But who were we to say anything? Nobody, I said, understanding completely. Just the help. Uncle David had commandeered the main microphone now. "Since we're being honest," he said, his voice carrying decades of suppressed frustration, "perhaps it's time we discussed why Maya has been labeled the family curse for 26 years. Margaret stepped toward him. "David, don't what? Tell the truth?" Robert would be ashamed of what this family has become. He pulled out his phone, connecting it to the venue's AV system with surprising tech savvy for a 70-year-old. "I've kept these documents for 20 years, waiting for the right moment. I think that moment is now." On the massive screens meant to display romantic photos of the happy couple, a series of documents appeared instead. Bank statements, legal documents, a police report from the night of my father's death. "Robert died in a car accident, yes," David said, "but not because he was changing his schedule for Maya's play. He was driving to meet with Grant Industries' lawyer, Victoria's late husband, about financial irregularities he'd discovered. Embezzlement. Fraud. Robert was going to blow the whistle." Victoria Grant stood so quickly her chair toppled. "How dare you!" "The drunk driver who hit him," David continued, "was never found. Convenient, wasn't it? And within a week, Margaret received a substantial insurance payout that saved the Collins portfolio from bankruptcy. Strange, since Robert's actual insurance went to the children's trusts." I stared at the documents, pieces of a puzzle I'd never known existed clicking into place. "You knew?" I turned to my mother. "You knew Dad was murdered." "It wasn't. We couldn't prove," Margaret stammered. "So you took their money and let them blame me?" My voice broke. "You let a child carry that guilt to protect your relationship with his killers?" Ethan was backing away from everyone, his face a mask of horror. "You knew. Both of you knew. This whole engagement, was this part of it? Keeping the families tied together? Keeping the secret buried?" Olivia, sensing the complete collapse of her plans, tried one last manipulation. "Ethan, whatever happened in the past, we can work through this." "Work through this?" He laughed, bitter and sharp. "You were marrying me to complete a decades-old cover-up. Our children would have been born into this lie." Harper Lou was on her phone now, likely trying to contain the legal nightmare unfolding. Noah Reyes was typing furiously on his tablet, his editor probably screaming for the exclusive. "Mommy," Emma tugged at my dress, "are you okay?" I looked down at her worried face, this brave little girl who'd started an avalanche with nothing but truth. "You know what, baby? For the first time in 26 years, I think I am." Margaret approached us, her perfect facade finally completely shattered. "Maya, please, you have to understand." "I understand perfectly," I said, pulling Emma closer. "You traded your daughter for your comfort. You let me believe I killed my father to keep your blood money clean. It wasn't supposed to what? Last this long, to hurt this much? To destroy your son's life too?" The ballroom had erupted into chaos now. Guests fleeing or gossiping, staff trying to maintain order, security moving to block exits. But in the eye of the storm, our family stood broken and exposed, 26 years of lies scattered like confetti at the wedding that would never be. Uncle David wasn't finished. Like a prosecutor who'd waited decades for his day in court, he clicked to the next slide on the screen. A photograph of my father, young and determined, standing next to David outside what looked like a courthouse. "Robert came to me 3 days before he died," David said, his voice heavy with old grief. He'd discovered that Grant Industries was using Collins Construction as a front for money laundering. Our family company, built by our grandfather with his bare hands, turned into a criminal enterprise. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling. "He had evidence," David continued, showing a USB drive to the crowd. "I've kept it safe all these years. Reports, recordings, proof that would have sent half of Grant Industries' board to prison." Victoria Grant's lawyer was pushing through the crowd now, shouting about slander and lawsuits, but David just smiled grimly. "Sue me," he said. "I'm 73 years old with terminal cancer. What I want before I die is the truth." The revelation hit me like a physical blow. "David, you're—" "6 months, they say. Maybe 8. He squeezed my shoulder. "I couldn't leave this world letting you carry blame that was never yours." Margaret collapsed into a chair, aging 10 years in 10 seconds. They said they'd destroy us all. The children, the company, everything Robert's father built. They had judges, police commissioners. So you sacrificed Maya instead? Ethan's voice was raw. You let her believe she killed Dad? You let me grow up thinking my sister was cursed? I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself, I said, finding my voice at last. Every birthday Emma celebrated without family. Every Christmas we spent alone. Every time you looked through me like I was a ghost. That was you choosing your comfort over your daughter. The screens changed again, showing a contract dated 1 week after my father's funeral. In exchange for silence regarding all matters pertaining to Robert Collins, David read aloud, Margaret Collins will receive monthly payments of... The number made the crowd gasp. Blood money, someone whispered. Every month for 26 years, David said. The price of a daughter's reputation, the cost of a granddaughter's exclusion. Olivia had been backing toward the exit, but Ethan's voice stopped her. Did you know? When you agreed to marry me, did you know what our families had done? She turned, and for the first time all evening her mask completely fell. Of course I knew. Why do you think I chose you? The merger would have buried it forever. Your mother and mine. They planned this for years. Our whole relationship was a lie? Not a lie, she said with chilling practicality. A business arrangement. Love is a luxury for people who can afford to be emotional. I thought you understood that. I loved you, Ethan said quietly. That was your mistake. The words hung in the air like a slap. Emma pressed closer to me, and I could feel her small body trembling. It's okay, baby, I whispered. Sometimes people show us who they really are, and it hurts, but it's better than living with lies. Noah Reyes stepped forward, his recorder visible now. Mrs. Collins, Margaret, do you have any comment on the allegation that you've been taking money to cover up your husband's murder? Margaret looked at him, then at me, then at the ruins of what should have been her triumph. I comment that I did what any mother would do to protect her children. By destroying one of them? Noah pressed. By choosing the greater good, she snapped, then caught herself. I want my lawyer. Harper Lou was already at her side, whispering urgently about damage control and statements. But Uncle David wasn't done. There's one more thing, he said, pulling out a yellowed envelope. Robert wrote this for his children the day before he died. He must have sensed something. Margaret, you told them he left nothing for them, but he did. He handed the envelope to me with shaking hands. My father's handwriting, faded but unmistakable, spelled out, "For Maya and Ethan, always remember you are loved." I opened it with trembling fingers, Ethan reading over my shoulder. My precious children, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Please know it was never your fault. Maya, my bright star, you bring light wherever you go. Never let anyone dim that light. Ethan, my gentle soul, be brave enough to choose love over fear. The world will try to tell you who to be. Don't listen. You are perfect exactly as you are. I love you both beyond words, beyond time, beyond death itself. Forever your devoted father, Robert. I was sobbing now. 26 years of grief and guilt flooding out. Ethan was crying too, his arm around me for the first time since we were children. He knew, I whispered. He knew someone might hurt him, and his last thoughts were making sure we knew we were loved. Emma wrapped her small arms around both of us. He sounds nice, she said simply. I wish I could have met him. He would have adored you, Uncle David said, his own eyes wet. You have his courage. Tonight you did what none of us adults could do for decades. You told the truth. The ballroom was emptying now, guests fleeing the social disaster. But I didn't care. For the first time in my adult life, I was free. Free from the weight of false guilt. Free from the obligation to shrink myself. Free to be the person my father always believed I was. Ethan stood in the center of the chaos, his cream tuxedo wrinkled, his perfect image shattered. He looked at Olivia, then at the engagement ring sitting on the podium like evidence at a crime scene. I need you to know something, he said, his voice carrying across the ballroom. Every moment we shared, every laugh, every kiss, I meant it all. I loved you with everything I had. Olivia's composure cracked slightly. Ethan! But you? He shook his head. You were performing. And the saddest part is, I think you've been performing so long, you don't even know who you really are anymore. Victoria Grant stepped forward, ice in her voice. Mr. Collins, I suggest you think very carefully about your next words. The merger between our companies is over, Ethan said firmly. I'll resign from my position on Monday. I won't be part of building an empire on graves and lies. You're throwing away your entire future. No, he said, looking at Emma and me. I'm finally choosing to have one worth living. He picked up the engagement ring, examining it in the light. 20 carats, he said to no one in particular. Worth more than most people make in 5 years, and absolutely worthless. He walked to Emma, kneeling down. Want to see something cool? She nodded wide-eyed. He took the ring and threw it as hard as he could into the chocolate fountain, where it disappeared with a splash that sent brown droplets across the white tablecloth. Ethan, Margaret gasped. It's just a thing, Mother. Like your reputation. Like this whole facade we've been maintaining. He stood, addressing the remaining guests. The engagement is off. The wedding is cancelled. And the Collins family, as you know it, is done pretending. A slow clap started from the back of the room. Then another. Soon, a handful of guests, the servers, the musicians, the people who worked for their money, were applauding. Harper Lou tugged at Margaret's sleeve. Whoa, we need to leave, now, before the press. But Noah Reyes was already broadcasting live on his phone. This is Noah Reyes reporting from what might be the most dramatic society event in New York history. Margaret looked around wildly, her empire crumbling. Maya, please, we can work this out privately. Like we worked out Dad's death privately? I asked. Like we worked out my exile privately? No, Mother. Privacy was your weapon. The truth is mine. She turned to leave, but Emma's voice stopped her. Grandma? Margaret paused, but didn't turn. I forgive you, Emma said simply. Mommy taught me that holding on to anger is like drinking poison, but forgiving doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean you get to hurt us anymore. Margaret's shoulders shook once, a sob or a laugh, I couldn't tell, before she walked out, Harper Lou scrambling after her. Victoria and Olivia Grant left through another exit, their lawyers already on phones preparing for war. The ballroom was nearly empty now, just debris from a party that had become a revelation. Uncle David sat heavily in a chair, exhausted from his truth-telling. You okay? I asked, sitting beside him. Best I've felt in 26 years, he said. Robert would be proud of you, Maya. You survived what would have broken most people. And you raised a warrior. He smiled at Emma, who was collecting abandoned desserts from various tables. What happens now? Ethan asked, joining us. The company, the families, everything? Now, David said. We rebuild. Honestly this time. I've got enough evidence to reopen the investigation into Robert's death. The Grants will probably avoid prosecution. Too much time has passed, but their reputation will be ruined. And Margaret? He sighed. She'll have to live with her choices. And us? I asked, looking at my brother. Ethan took my hand, squeezing it. We start over, as real family this time. No more lies, no more distance. He paused. I have a lot to make up for. Years of letting them treat you like... You were a kid too, I interrupted. We were both trapped in their story, but Emma freed us. I watched my daughter carefully balance 3 plates of cake. She did what we couldn't. She refused to accept that love came with conditions. She's extraordinary, Ethan said, just like her mother. For the first time in decades, I believed someone meant it when they said something kind about me. 3 months later, the Sunday morning sun streamed through my apartment windows, the same apartment that Olivia had sneered at. But now it was full of life. Emma sat at the kitchen table, carefully writing thank you cards to the surprising number of people who'd reached out after Noah's story went viral. 7-year-old exposes family secrets at $1 million engagement party. Ethan was at the stove burning pancakes with dedicated incompetence. He'd been coming over every Sunday since that night, learning how to be a brother again, learning how to be an uncle. Uncle Ethan, they're supposed to be brown, not black, Emma informed him seriously. These are extra crispy, he defended, scraping carbon into the trash. Gourmet. A knock at the door interrupted our laughter. I opened it to find Uncle David. thinner than 3 months ago, but smiling, carrying a small potted plant. "Jasmine," he said, handing it to me. "It blooms in silence, but its fragrance travels far, like truth." "How are the treatments going?" I asked, taking the plant. "Good days and bad days, but more good lately." He entered, ruffling Emma's hair. "Especially since I get to spend them with family who actually likes each other." My phone buzzed. Another interview request. Since the story broke, I'd been offered book deals, podcast appearances, even a documentary. I'd turned them all down. Our story wasn't entertainment, it was our life. "Any word from—" Ethan trailed off. "Mother called yesterday," I said. "She wants to meet Emma, properly this time." "And?" "I told her she could earn that privilege. Family therapy every week. It's been 2 sessions so far." "How's that going?" "She cried," I said simply. "For the first time since Dad died, she actually cried. The therapist says it's progress." Emma looked up from her cards. "Will Grandma ever not be mean?" "I don't know, baby. But she's trying to learn. People can change if they really want to. Like how Uncle Ethan changed from being too busy to being here every Sunday?" Ethan winced. "Exactly like that, little star." The Grant empire had indeed crumbled after the revelation. 3 board members resigned, 2 were indicted, and Victoria Grant fled to Switzerland. Olivia had already moved on, engaged to a pharmaceutical heir, another good match according to the tabloids. "I have news," Ethan said, finally producing a plate of acceptable pancakes. "I got the job." "The nonprofit?" I asked hopefully. He nodded. "Legal aid for single parents. Turns out my banking experience is useful for something good after all." "I'm proud of you," I said, meaning it. "I'm proud of us," he corrected. "We survived them, Maya. Their lies, their money, their power. We survived it all." Emma abandoned her cards to water the jasmine plant, placing it carefully on the windowsill where it would catch the morning light. "Mommy, will it really bloom?" "With enough care and patience," Uncle David said. "The best things always take time." My phone rang, Lena's name on the screen. She'd become a real friend these past months, one of many unexpected gifts from that horrible night. "Maya, turn on Channel 7. Now!" I grabbed the remote, and there was Margaret on the morning news, sitting across from a sympathetic interviewer. "Want to publicly apologize to my daughter Maya," she was saying, looking directly at the camera. "I failed her in every way a mother could fail a child. I let my grief and fear turn into something monstrous. I chose preservation over protection, reputation over relationship." Emma climbed into my lap. "Is Grandma saying sorry?" "She's trying to," I said, holding her close. "I don't expect forgiveness," Margaret continued on screen. "I haven't earned it, but I want Maya to know, and I want Emma to know, that they are not bad luck. They are blessings I was too blind to see." The interviewer asked, "What would you say to other families keeping toxic secrets?" Margaret's answer was immediate. "That silence is not love. It's not protection. It's violence in slow motion. And it will poison everything it touches until someone is brave enough to speak the truth." Ethan turned off the TV. "Well, that was unexpected." "She's got a long way to go," I said. "But it's a start." Emma wiggled off my lap, returning to her thank you cards. "Mommy, how do you spell courage?" I spelled it out for her, watching her careful letters form words of gratitude to strangers who'd become supporters. "You know what?" I said, looking around my small apartment, at my brother flipping pancakes, my uncle sipping tea, my daughter writing cards, the jasmine plant already perfuming the air with promise. We might not have their money or their connections or their power, but we have something they never did. "What's that?" Emma asked. "The truth," I said, "and each other, and each, and that's more than enough." Outside, New York churned on, indifferent to our small revolution. But inside this apartment, in this moment, our family was finally truly whole.